Well, I can tell you a story about how I came here.
You were a psychiatric social worker in a hospital for a year, right?
You've got that almost right, Will. I was a psychiatric patient in a hospital. For a year. Yeah, actually, no, when I was in college, I wanted to go into mental health work. I was a psychology major in college. And so, for instance, in the summer of 1968, which Charlotte, you've read of historically, summer of '68. What happened to the summer of '68? Anyone remember?
Riots in Detroit.
Riots in Detroit.
It's the summer of love. wasn't it?
Detroit. Well, actually, even more so.
Robert Kennedy was
Riots
assassinated.
in
Yeah.
Chicago.
Oh, in Chicago, that's what I was
Right.
thinking. At the convention.
Martin Luther King.
Kennedy's that.
Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
Robert Kennedy. Martin Luther King was assassinated on April 4th, and Robert Kennedy was assassinated on June 4th.
June 4th.
Yeah.
I was on the Tappan Zee Bridge.
So the country was going crazy, in other words, and I was that in that summer of 1968. I worked in a mental health work-study program in California, living in Berkeley, which is the Cambridge of the West. So, and I was going to work in mental health and go to work in mental hospitals, which I did that summer, working with kids. But 2 years later, I decided that I'd come to the largest mental hospital in the world, Harvard Square, instead. So, in 1971, after actually in 1970, in 1969 and 1970, I was a community organizer,
Like Barack Obama?
like Barack Obama in North Carolina, and we were very inculcated with the ideas of Saul Alinsky. How many of you have ever heard of Saul Alinsky? Actually, if you read about Barack Obama's community organizing, you read Saul Alinsky was a Chicago community organizer. So when I came to Cambridge, I both was attracted to the craziness of Harvard Square because I liked crazy people. That's why I love all of you. And I was also oriented towards community organizations. And the Cambridge Center was a community organization. I had no idea what it was when I came here.
And you applied to be the registrar?
Answered the ad to be the registrar.
And it was like an ad in the Globe or something like that?
It must have been because that's the only place that advertised in those days.
And where were you living? How did you find a place to live when you came to Harvard Square, to Cambridge?
Well, I've been here, actually, how long had I been here? When I first came, I slept on the couch of my college roommate on Marlborough Street.
That's a classic.
Right. And then I had an apartment over on Beacon Street in Somerville. So I came to the Cambridge Center in 1971, and in 1971, I think, we were just on the verge of growing about twice as big. Alita was a new director after.
And we hadn't bought 56 quite yet, or we were about to?
We bought 56 in December of '72.
Wow.
Wow, so you came here right as that was shifting.
Yeah, between 1970, we had 8,000 registrations all in this house.
Wow.
And in 1975, we had 26,000 registrations.
Oh.
Wow.
Kadri was here by 1975, I think.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, Maya was born in 1975.
Maya was born in
Yeah,
1975.
yeah.
Yeah, so we bought the Blacksmith House in 1972.
And then we built the new building, shortly after that.
Yeah, it actually didn't open until '79.
When everything was being done by hand, the catalog was being laid out not on computers, but by hand.
And
All
you
the
did it on
registrations
tables.
were happening by hand.
Yeah, we used to get the proofs. We got the proofs back from the printer, and I would cut all the blurbs up, and I would take a room like this and lay it out all on the tables, so that it would be how many tables? Usually about 6 tables was what it would take
Wow.
to lay it out. And we used to offer a course called Paste Up Skills. You remember Paste Up?
Oh, yeah.
Michael, being
Sure.
someone who used to
Yeah.
do catalogs. So I used to paste up the catalog.
And we were doing 26,000 registrants without computers.
Yes. We hired, in the mid-'70s, we hired a data service. So we would send the registration cards over to the data service, and they would enter the data.
Really?
Send it back, yeah.
Wow.
Actually, in 1970, or just before I came, I think it was still true in 1971, we kept our mailing list on labels that people would type in the summer during August when it was slow. This is when I used to walk 6 miles to school.
So So that was just an ongoing August project to get ready for the fall catalog mailing, was typing
And they
all of
t-
the catalog.
So they typed
requests
labels in
onto labels.
triplicate, and when someone had a change in their label, you'd go pick up the
Oh.
label.
Wow.
Yes, 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 yes. And then in 1973,
And those would all just be enormous bulk mailing?
yeah, and we do the mail too.
Yeah, in a big room, on lots of tables.
So as we look today, what year is this? 2009. That's 38 years later, isn't it? Yeah. So in 38 years from now, let's see, in 1971, I was 24 years old. Was anyone 24?
Here?
How old are you?
26.
26.
Mm.
So almost the same.
Vicky?
In 38 years, it'll be 2047.
Mm.
My 100th birthday. So in 38 years, it'll be interesting to see. We actually have, for any of you who are historically minded, the board in 1968 had a planning committee that did, and their job was to envision the Cambridge Center in the year 2000. And board members, including Herta Lozer, who you know, and Babette Spiegel, whose
Mm.
name is on the Spiegel Performance Center, was a board member in 1968. And she wrote an essay about what the Cambridge Center would or could or might be in the future. So imagining the future, and again, speaking of 1968 and speaking of Martin Luther King, there was somebody who, if you were alive in 1968 or 63 when the March on Washington happened and you heard Martin Luther King say, I have a dream of a day when da 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 da, and then 40 years later Barack Obama is the President of the United States, etc. They don't entirely come true, but things keep changing. So the Cambridge Center is here to help us and the world figure out how do we want to change the world ourselves. So it's fun. So you guys will keep doing that. As Pat said yesterday, Pat Mazza, who came over very sweetly and handed Will a check for $23 in response to your request, Elizabeth and Will. She said, every time I open that Cambridge Center catalog, there's something new and interesting and exciting and innovative that I haven't seen before, and she's been reading it for 35 years. So that spark.
I had never been a donor, and that was her first time
That was
being
your
a
first
donor.
donation, so
Wow.
$23.
Really?
So anyway,
Good on.
so you guys will keep cooking these things up. And the final thing I'll say is that one of our traditions, obviously, is having this stuff, including fruit, which Will is very connected to, the fruits of our, and of course, culture and the way people interact together starts with the meals, starts with the food. So it's a nice tradition. So thank you all for putting together this little thing, and of course, we'll have a couple of parties later.
Will you answer other questions that people might have?
Yes,
Because you're
because-
such a wonderful
Yeah, does anyone have
teacher.
any questions? Any questions?
Any questions?
From the microscopic to where is the key to that particular drawer to
I'm
what was
keeping
it
my
like-
I'm keeping my
what was it
email
like
address.
when?
Jim will keep his email address.
When did you start
Okay.
teaching?